Welcome to the Lotco Business Podcast, a show all about helping you as a retailer, brand or creative understand the actual business side of running your business. I offer straightforward practical advice about the nitty-gritty of making money from your creative passion. We will be covering bite-sized business and marketing lessons as well as interviews with experts and trailblazers in the fashion, homewares and design industries. My name is Melissa Robbins. I'm a business coach, colour-loving, non-coffee drinking Melburnian. Let's get into it. Hello, welcome. I'm so excited to have a special guest today, Megan Pollock from Second Scout. Megan is joining me to talk all about her business and her journey. So thank you so much for being here, Megan.
Thank you for having me, Mel. We finally made it happen.
We finally did. We've been talking about this for a few years now, haven't we?
We have.
And you've had some ups and downs, which we'll cover in this time because, it definitely is a journey having a business. And I think we met maybe 2 or 3 years ago when you applied for the scholarship for Life in Style. Is that right?
Yeah, so that'll be 3 years ago this July. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's coming up again now. And I think this podcast will probably come out after that. But, there's been a lot happen in those 3 years. And let's sort of start talking a little bit about, well, first of all, what is Second Scout?
So Second Scout is a children's brand, and it's a children's brand that is focused on empowering kids with everyday routine and reminders while saving the sanity of parents. So our 2 flagship items are a routine helper made of a unique magnetic timber design. It's got a stand with all the kind of activities that a child would do every day, brush your teeth, pop your shoes on, flips over to stars when they're done. And then our other item is a weekly planner setting up for kids what's on for the day. So all using pictures so children don't have to read to be able to use them, and empowering them to kind of work through the everyday tasks and reduce the mental load for parents.
Anything that can reduce the mental load, I swear to God, it's going to be a good thing, because clearly it's a generalization, but women mostly carry the mental load, I think, in the family, and I'm, generalizing there, but I think anything that can reduce it in any shape or form is going to be a win, I think.
Absolutely. And I started the business, I had 2 children, but one of them was a baby. And so technically I only had 1 child who I was trying to wrangle and get out the door in the morning. So now having 2, it's a must have in our house. Absolutely.
Yeah. And you talked about there that you don't have to read, but that you do have words on them too, right? So it can help with the reading as well, because it's that connection between the visual and the word.
Yeah. So generally we find kids come on board about that 3-year age mark when they're learning, the different things that happen throughout the day and learning, about predictability. But then my eldest daughter is turning 9 in August, and she still uses it every day. And obviously she can read very well now. So, I've heard of even adults using the product where needed. So, it's got the words and the pictures.
It's just having that big visual of what's a day about, what's the, kids love to count in sleeps and how many sleeps of that, and what, and as you say, like that 3-year-old, my niece is 4, and she's like looking at the calendar all the time. Ask me where the M is, ask me where the Friday is, and what does that day mean?
Yes.
Like they're learning that stages. So, for them to have that, which day am I at kinder or which day have I got swimming, it's just such a huge visual reminder for them.
Yeah, absolutely. The one in our house at the moment is ballet. My 4-year-old has just started ballet, so she's always running into her little agenda and having a look and counting how many sleeps it is till it's ballet.
Yeah, love that. So good. And so now let's just go back though. So you started that to help with that mental load, to help that visual element, and you haven't just done it with a, plastic sort of slap on, bright coloured theme or anything. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but you have gone in that aesthetic. You've started in this beautiful aesthetic way. It took you years to get it right. How long did it take you to actually, from that idea of concept to bringing it out to the market?
Yeah, so I actually did start with my own DIY laminated colourful version, and that was the prompt to get going, because anytime someone would come over, I'd throw it in a cupboard because it didn't go with the aesthetic that I had in mind. So that was the driver, to make something that was practical but beautiful. So I guess I kind of stumbled upon creating the business. I was on maternity leave with my second daughter, and I had a change of circumstance where I didn't return to my corporate role. And I kept getting fed these ads about this lady startup course run by Mia Friedman. And I said to my husband, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do it. I've always had this feeling I wanted to do something, but let me learn a little bit more about it. So after kicking that off with no set idea of what I wanted to do in a business, I ended up committing to starting a business, working out what the product was going to be, and launching. I'm going to call it now soft launch in hindsight, because that all happened in 10 weeks. So it was
okay,
so
that's
fast
huge.
and so swift. And that was building, the website and the brand and all of those things around it at that time. The fire was in my belly and I just sort of went for it. However, from that point to when things were real, so to speak, when I actually had my shelf-ready wholesale product, that was, almost a year through that. So I look at it like it was sort of a two-phased launch unintentionally, but I launched with that first product, which was low cost, made in Australia, very easy to execute, no technical components essentially. However, I was able to take the research from that proof of concept and build it into the product that I have today.
Yeah, and I guess that's the thing. Like, you're testing the market, you're seeing what feedback you get from people, you're checking what price point people are going to pay and stuff like that as well. And yeah, you're seeing if it's viable in terms of your profit margins and stuff like that as well. So, as you say, like, it doesn't necessarily, the way you start doesn't mean the way you end up or finish as well. Like, it can evolve as you go. It doesn't have to be perfect when you first get going.
Yeah, absolutely. And the biggest thing that came out of it for me is when I first launched, well, I had no idea about how to create a product for a start. And then secondly, I had no idea about wholesale. So I launched on my own website and didn't have any wholesalers or know anything about wholesale. So what I was fortunate enough in that scenario is that I didn't have the right margins with this original product. I wasn't shelf ready. I didn't have packaging. I hadn't done safety testing. And I kept getting inquiries, mainly through Instagram, of people seeing my product, because it is quite an Instagrammable product, and wholesalers contacting me saying, can we stock your products or do you wholesale? And I thought, what does that even mean? That's when I needed you, Mel. And so
Exactly.
I was lucky enough to have some amazing stockists contact me that kind of handheld me a
Guided
bit
you
and
through.
guided
Yeah.
me through. So as I was building the product, I was able to bounce it off those wholesalers who had said, do you wholesale, to kind of shape the product to be something that,
Would
works
right
better.
for in store and
Yeah,
And that's the thing with wholesale. Like, I obviously I focus on it and I do love it as a sales channel because direct to consumer is great. Like, I love it. You get retail price, you get, direct feedback to your customer, direct connection to your customers. But it's hard to get the customers to come to you, right? Like, you've got to spend a lot of money or, spend a lot of time marketing to get customers to your website. Whereas at wholesale, the retail stores are doing that job for you of really being passionate about the product, talking about the product, sharing with people how the product is useful, and showcasing it to all this foot traffic that they get. Like, it's hard to beat, and you couldn't be, and I will get into it as well, but, you've got stores around the world a little bit, and we'll get into where they are and what that, but it'd be pretty hard to reach all the customers that they reach themselves as a store where they're located, like distribution-wise.
Oh, absolutely. And even in those early days, I would see when I would onboard a new wholesaler and they would share the product, I would then get followers on my socials that would come from that. And another 3 wholesalers would contact me interested about the range. So it definitely helped with that initial growth and more visibility and getting more brands on board, definitely.
Yeah. Credibility for the stores who've got your product too, because you're in some pretty amazing, beautiful stores, and so their opinions valued quite highly too by other stores or consumers.
Absolutely. And my product is a bit of a hybrid because whilst it was designed as a children's educational resource, I guess if you're going to categorize it also fits into the design and interiors space. So I've got some stockists that are very much focused on that, not around children, but around that design aesthetic of the home. And then there's also the neurodiverse community that there's lots of sensory stores and additional needs stock the range as well. So I've got that angle. So there's kind of three different stockists that I'm fortunate enough to have, with the range.
Yeah, I love that. That's so good. And so one of the maybe the highlights or kickoff points for you is probably doing the scholarship and applying for that and seeing where you're at, and then clearly winning that. That was your first. Was that your first trade show that you because of winning that?
Yes, yes, it was my first trade show. It was actually one of my stockists that said to me, "You should enter this," and I thought, "Why not?" And then, next thing I won, and I'm in the middle of the ICC in Sydney, going, "Holy dooly, what is this?" It was just enormous. And I don't know if you remember, but that was the year they combined it with Reed. So it was extra enormous and very overwhelming.
Lucky you, I was holding your hand, though, through that process to
I know.
get you ready for that.
Very lucky.
Well, and one of the things that we definitely worked on in that I do remember is we figured out that pricing, and really I think that we definitely worked through a bit of the probably mindset / limiting beliefs around price. Well, there's a bit of that we had to, I guess, get over. Would you say that?
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the first things you said to me, Mel, was we need to put your prices up. And I hesitated and didn't back myself. But then, like you said, after moving through some of that mindset stuff and believing in what I do and knowing that it is what it is, the cost is what it is. It's pure solid timber. It's, high strength magnets. I bring it from overseas. It costs what it costs. I can't, hide behind that. So,
yeah, and that's right. And you want to have a profitable business that is sustainable. So you can't do that if you're not making any profit. And it's not for you to rake in, dollars. It's for you to keep doing what you want to do and keep impacting people and keep having this be shared with more people.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you've been through some ups and downs as well in the business. So one of the biggest things I know you went through last year was having an issue with your supply chain, with your factory. Do you want to touch on that and talk about what happened and what you went through to, move forward?
Yeah, so I'll try and keep it short because it is quite a long story that went for about 9 months. It was quite traumatic, if I'm honest. Being a product-based business, as you would know, and being self-funded or family-funded, it's really tricky to get that cash flow cycle happening. So for about 2 years before that, I was in that cash flow churn of, invest for the first production run and then start selling, and then you realize, okay, now it's time to invest again before I've made those sales. So that's a very stressful time for a business. It's a stressful time when I've got a young family and not bringing in that income to the family during that time. So I'd done the hard yards, I'd felt, and then finally at the end of that year, 2022, things were like I was making money from the business. Things were growing. Things felt really good. I was out of that cash flow cycle. And then all of a sudden, overnight and without warning, in January 2023, I was advised by my factory that they were closing immediately. So I was completely blindsided. Along with this factory, they also did work for about 5 major global toy brands as well. All of those brands who I've since formed quite a close relationship with, they were all blindsided as well. Just absolutely did not see it coming. No cracks to show and no opportunity to put through a last order.
Yeah, put through those last bits just to cover you for a certain time or whatever it might be, yeah.
Yeah, so my busiest time is sort of December through February in Australia for that back to school period, getting sort of for the year ahead, Christmas presents. And so I was getting very low on stock and I needed to place another order. And then all of a sudden I'm in the situation where I know I'm about to run out of stock and I don't have a factory. It took me about 8 months to find the factory initially, and I was also refining the product and changing things and a lot of back and forward. An original factory was based in Thailand, shipping stuff over, tweaking, changing, sending it back. So I thought, well, it can't be that hard. I've got the product. I just need a new factory. Well, little did I know how hard it would be. Given the unique design of my products, I didn't want to just go out to tender and send, 10 samples out to factories I hadn't built any rapport or, didn't have any recommendations on. So I intentionally would approach one factory at a time. They were sent the product. They obviously disassembled the product to then be able to make it again. And they would send me prototypes where the magnets wouldn't even stick. They would send me prototypes where you could push the timber and make a nail mark in the timber because it was so soft. They just error after error after error, and it was 5 factory attempts. And I was pretty broken at that point. I had a lot going on personally, and then with this going on professionally, I had a space that I was leasing because things had grown, and I'd moved from my spare room into a storage shed and then into an office, which, I had to pay the rent and I had to keep the lights on. So with nothing to sell, the business was going backwards financially whilst I looked for this solution. And it really took it out of me, to be honest. I think I'm a pretty resilient person, but yeah, that took resilience 10 times
beyond
beyond anything I could have ever imagined. I hit a point where I didn't think I could go on after the 5th factory failed, and I quite literally was sitting there at my desk writing a list of what I needed to do to wind up the business. And as I was doing that, a phone call was coming through from a number I didn't recognise. Normally I don't answer those ones, but I did this time. And it was Australia Post ringing to congratulate me on winning a local business award. Within that same day, I also received an email from a customer saying they just wanted to reach out and personally thank me for creating the products because their child is nonverbal and it allows them to communicate with their child. So those two things combined on that day, and I just thought, I got to dig again. I got to go one more time. I can't walk away. So
it's having an impact. It is changing people's lives. Like it's as you say, it's educational, but it really does transform so much of that, especially, as you say, nonverbal or neurodivergent who need that to help manage the day.
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of felt a duty to, my customers to try again and keep going. And I did. And the 6th and final factory was successful. So I sold out. I was out of stock from January 2023, so the start of the year. And then my shelves weren't restocked until October of last year, just gone. So in many ways, everything was off and running, and, I was reaping the benefits from all that hard work in the first few years. And essentially it's starting again now in terms of, I'm very lucky I've got that engaged audience there and an audience that was waiting for me to be restocked. However, in terms of the back end and the cash flow side of things, it's playing catch up to start again. So
yeah.
Yep.
And with your stockists, did many drop off, or were you able to get them back again, the ones that you had? Were they keen to get it back once they'd had, that wait time as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very lucky at the stockists that I have. I kept them in the loop. I was completely transparent as to what was going on. I didn't know if it was going to be viable or not, if I would be able to push through it. So there was a time where I sort of had to really be confident that I was going to be able to continue the business. But once I knew I was on, the right path to saving the business, I communicated with them every step of the way, letting them know, dates and things that had happened, and managed to keep all of the costs the same, which they were all, very grateful for. And yeah, so I had a very supportive crew of wholesalers behind me.
Yeah, that's great. How many wholesalers would you have now in your business? I mean, obviously they do chop and change. I know that as a general.
Yeah, it does chop and change, and there's been quite a bit lately, but it would be around the between 60 and 70 mark, both in Australia and overseas.
Yep. And in terms of retail versus wholesale, like what's that balance for your business in general? Generalization, numbers.
So in general, it would be about 75% retail, 25% wholesale.
Really? That's interesting.
Very interesting. And even when I look at the numbers, it was stronger in wholesale back, 2 years ago. But some things to keep in mind, obviously the economy. I was a new brand that stockers were taking on board. But yeah, I've seen a big shift more to direct to customer sales.
Yeah, and I guess that's where your product, people, it's word of mouth too. Like a lot of people see it and, other people share it. It is about, and you use, create amazing content and visuals. And we should just touch on if this is true. Did you have Miranda Kerr talk about your product or mention it? I don't know if she's shown a photo, but what happened there? Tell me about that.
We never got to the bottom of it.
Yeah,
But
okay. She mentioned it on her story or something, right?
she mentioned this product and she talked about this timber helper that she uses for her children and the way she was describing it and moving her hands. Someone sent it to me and said, I'm convinced this is your product. And I was like, no, don't be silly. And then I showed my husband. He's like, yes, it's definitely your product. I showed a few more people. People were convinced. So I turned it into something a bit funny on social media, being like, let's find out if, Miranda Kerr owns Second Scout. So she did view my story, one of my stories that I saw. Well, probably not her, probably one of her team of 200 comms advisors. But yeah, never got to the bottom of it. So Miranda, if you're listening, just, let us know if it was Second Scout or not.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, you do have a lot of user generated content from people using the product, right? Like that is a big part of how others find you and you get new customers come into the business.
Yeah, definitely. And that generally happens really organically. People just share, film their kids using it, talk about how it's helped them as parents. I'm super grateful, that my customers get behind that. I've had some pretty cool people buy the product, some names that come up and I go like, wow, how did you find, little old me and Second Scout? So I always make sure I write a really nice note in that package when it goes to them, hoping that they will share it. Some of them do, some of them don't. The ones I really want to share haven't shared. But yeah, it's pretty cool to know you're in the homes of, some of those people that pass through on the orders.
Yeah, that's funny. And so let's just touch on what you would recommend to others now, like starting out for whether that's the brand, whether it's wholesale, what would be your advice in just getting going?
So a trade show to kick off for me was a huge opportunity. I had gone from a brand that was just starting straight into, one of the biggest wholesale activities you could do. So for me, that was big for me in terms of my initial growth. Because my product is so tactile, something that's been really beneficial for me is sending physical products to people.
Yep, samples.
That's been really important. I think you and I were working together when I secured some dream stockists over in the US, and that was after sending physical samples. I could email as much as I wanted, but it wasn't until they held it in their hands that they really realized the tactile nature of it. So, sending physical samples has been great for me.
And physical catalogue, which I always make my clients create.
Yes.
Because that was a big part of, as a former buyer, having clarity in the information that the potential, stock brands send is so important, because I find when I look at a lot of catalogues, as much as you want to hear a story and you want to know the background, it's a lot of waffle. Or just show me the product already. Like it's just, like, whereas that we've really made succinct and really refined to go, this is the product, this is how you can buy it, this is what to do next. Like people, put too much other superfluous, I guess, information in there.
Yeah.
And even the language, I do remember some of the language, again, it's probably those working through those things, because you're like, can you please look at my product? Like, is it okay if I share this with you? And I'm like, no, let's just go in there and be like bold and strong. And
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is why you need me on your shelves as opposed to my original. Would it be okay if I took up a little bit of space on your shelf?
Exactly. But I think that's where I was talking to on an Instagram live the other day with Steffi from Celia Loves, and she talked about like be confident, like who your product is. Like you've created this amazing product, it's got a unique selling point. Share that, really talk about it. Back your product, and I think buyers are lucky to have you contact them. So own that as a brand, like really go, I'm making the buyers' lives easier by showing them a new amazing product and putting it in front of them. So
Yeah.
that's the view you should have as opposed to, oh, is it okay?
Yeah, that's such a good way to look at it. I've had to do a lot of work on mindset and confidence lately. I've had some PR opportunities happen, and that really pushes you as well to kind of
Yes.
look at your mindset and believe. I guess it's tricky because I believe in my product. I could talk about my product forever, but then it's the person behind the product and believing in my ability and capability that's been a little bit tricky. So yeah, work in progress.
And then what the headlines that they use to promote it as clickbait and stuff, and you're like, oh, that's not what I said.
Yes.
Well, let's talk about that though, because I talk about as a general like how to build $1 million business, and I use that terminology because it's like, well, how to get there, and what are the foundation things you need in place, and what are the elements you need to have in place to be able to get there. But that doesn't mean just because you might be close to or be getting $1 million in sales doesn't mean that you've got that in your bank at the end of the day, because as you say, it takes reinvestment in product. You've got to manage the cash flow. You've got to be able to attract those customers with your marketing or your branding and ads or whatever it might be. So yeah, building $1 million business doesn't mean that you're a millionaire all of a sudden.
Absolutely. And I think since that article's come out and speaking to a few people, you've either got two camps. You've got the person that thinks you banked that money, or you've got other people that realize that it's just turnover, and turnover means nothing. And that's why I've always been happy to talk to people about turnover and what the turnover of my business looks like, because that doesn't mean anything.
No,
it truly doesn't. It's the income and it's the money. I mean, the turnover for me feels great because it's me. I'm doing everything myself. I'm really proud that I've got to where I've gotten to on my own. So I'm proud of the turnover in terms of that means people love it and they want it and they buy it and it helps them. So that's validating from that angle. However, yeah, I don't have $1 million in my business account by any stretch.
Yet. Let's work on it. So what areas do you focus on in terms of marketing? Obviously, you talked about the user-generated content, and that is something you do, but what other things are you doing? Because I think you've got a marketing background as well, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I've got a marketing and brand background, a little bit of advertising agency experience as well, but that was like way before the days of social media. So social media, I was very much an offline brand and marketer, so it's a whole new world for me. I remember when I did my first story, it wasn't even a live story, it was just, a pictorial kind of story that I shared when I first started, and I'm trying to move the little Instagram things around and get it all lined up, and then it would delete the bit that I wanted. I remember it took like 20 minutes just to be like, now live or something like that. Like, it was so difficult, but obviously the first time you do something, it's really hard and really clunky, but the more you do it.
I remember when you first got on stories and you were like apprehensive, and I was like, just start,
No.
come on, you can do it.
I still get a bit funny, but then also I'm either like I rehearse and get on, or I just get on and just go for it and press go live and just let it happen. Yeah.
And do you do much email marketing? Do you do many collaborations? What else are you doing?
Yes, so brand reps have been really valuable for me in terms of building content as well and having that beautiful imagery. That's something I'm definitely not great at and something that I do outsource. The only thing that I outsource is, all that photography and video content. I curate it and I add the branding in and all the words and curate the content, so to speak, but I get those visuals from the brand reps. So that's been really helpful. I've done some paid collaborations, which have been really successful. Yeah, just short, sharp 15-second, 30-second stories. I've had a lot of great results from that a few years ago. And email marketing, yep, I do email marketing to my database. But the standout for me has been Facebook ads. And I was a little bit late to the party because it was on my list to teach myself how to do it. And it's been a game changer for my business. And that contributed a lot to that growth before I lost the factory, of just getting those extra eyeballs, that extra awareness, customers, but also wholesalers seeing those ads, inquiring about becoming a stockist. Yeah, Facebook ads have been very
Often people ask me about advertising to retailers, like ads and stuff. And it's like, I think it's about investing in your direct to consumer marketing, and the wholesale will come from that, because I don't think you can specifically target the stores well in Facebook ads if you're just trying to target wholesale. I think it's about marketing your whole business, and all that marketing spend for direct to consumer will also lead to wholesale sales.
Yeah, absolutely. I've never looked at doing it independently, but I find organically it does happen, like you said, through those Facebook ads, or even through paid collaborations where someone will share and then a few stockists would see it and then approach, with interest. So, yeah, I think it kind of comes organically from that.
Yeah. And I think like Facebook ads, I definitely think are amazing, but you need to have that foundational stuff set up first in terms of your website converting. You've got that proof of purchase, and you've got great user generated content so people know how to use it, and you've got amazing reviews, which you definitely have on your website. And so those things, like, it's not the starting point. So I think it's probably not a bad thing that you had those other things right first before you did the ads.
Yeah, absolutely. And understood the customer a lot more, and was able to build my custom audiences in Facebook because I knew who I was talking to. Yeah, so there's definitely a lot of benefits in not doing it earlier on. And it takes a long time to get used to your supply chain and your stock levels and make sure you're not selling out, having that crossover work beautifully. So all of that was humming by the time I'd started Facebook ads. So it kind of was meant to happen at that point.
Meant to happen at that stage, yeah. And so with your supply chain now, there's obviously something you've got to focus on constantly, like communication with your factory. Like, please do not close without telling me.
I know. Every 5 minutes, are you still there? Are you still there?
Yeah. And so a big question, which obviously you have been through a lot, but would you change anything about the journey or do anything differently?
Would I change anything? Would I do anything differently? Do I wish some things didn't happen? Yes. But would I do anything differently as such? Honestly, I don't know that I could have predicted what was going to happen. I mean, yeah, of course, I could have had a backup factory, and I do now. By the way, I've got, a plan B there. However, I don't know. It's not like I'm making, T-shirts where I can just go to the next T-shirt provider. Like, it was quite an involved process with the factory, and it took me over 8 months to secure that first factory. So it wasn't something that I just had another one up my sleeve. So do I wish some things didn't happen? Definitely. Would I change it? I don't know that I could have. I don't know that I could have changed it. All I can do now is put steps in place to ensure it wouldn't happen again.
Yeah, and that's right. And I think I've spoken to you about that in terms of maybe not necessarily you, but anyone. I think it is always good to have a backup, and I think it's always good to have not all your eggs in one basket in terms of just even if it's conversations that are starting, like, and yours is a little bit different because it isn't easy, which also makes it hard to copy, which I know has happened as well. So that's not necessarily the case. But it does, the harder it is, it almost is the harder it is for someone to succeed doing it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess the other thing it made me do is diversify my products and start to build other new products that didn't rely on that magnetic timber manufacture, that were other processes and using other factories. So I've got a few different things in the pipeline now. And then I introduced another range when I'd lost the factory of a lower cost item, but something that didn't have the supply chain issues and was relatively quick to market. So I guess it, did present to me that I had all my eggs in one basket and I did need to have different products and different income streams, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. And, yeah, I think that's good. That's it. You know, I think everyone can learn from just being prepared for what could be.
Yeah, absolutely.
So where do you want to take Second Scout? What is next for Second Scout?
So now that I'm back up and running again and my supply chain is sorted, I want to go back and revisit my plans to expand into the US. So I was on track to do that for their back to school period, which is the sort of mid-year period when they're on their break and getting ready to return to school. So I was very close to making that happen before I lost the factory. So I want to, start putting the wheels in motion to get that international expansion happening again.
Yeah, amazing. All right, so you talked about some new products that you've had come out. What are those innovative products that you've had come out? What are the different things?
I would love to give you an exclusive, but I am still I'm product testing. And how amazing is this? So I put a call out to my community on Instagram and asked if anyone wanted to be interested in testing a new product. So I've got a group of 30 people who, well, it was a larger group than that, but I narrowed it down. I had hundreds of applications and I've narrowed it down to 30 people, and they're literally helping me shape my next products, giving me feedback on it. I'm sending samples out to them to do testing and things like that. So I'm really excited about it. As with any new product, it's like 2 steps forward, 10 steps backwards. So just when we were about to nail this particular product that we're doing, there's been a setback. So working through that at the moment. So I can't exactly share what it is.
That's okay. Well, everyone has to stay tuned and follow along and find out for when it's coming out, or join your mailing list, right, to get the first little hint of when it comes out and first new release.
I hope it's going to be a welcome addition, because people have been asking for it for a very long time.
Oh, exciting. That's good. And what is something about you that no one knows? Or what is something you're passionate about right now?
I think not many people know that I didn't get my driver's license until I was in my mid-20s. So, like, my husband knew.
Were you living in somewhere that you didn't need your license, or were you in Brisbane?
Well, I kind of could duck and weave and just get away with it. Like, it was never really an issue until I met my husband, and he's like, "What? You don't have your license? This is ridiculous. You're 24 or however old I was." So he was giving me driving lessons. Yeah. And then he told me I needed to get my manual license. And I said, I'll get my auto first and then I'll go get back to get my manual. But still,
you never did, of course.
I'm 40 now and I still only have my automatic license. So
you don't need it anymore.
That's it. I've never been in a situation where I've had to jump in a manual car. So
yes. Well, there's hardly any left. And so where can people find you? So what is your Instagram and your website?
So secondscout.com.au for the website, and then my socials are secondscoutau.
Awesome. Super excited for people to go and check it out if they haven't already seen the product, and maybe buy it for their family and friends, or, someone who you think needs some mental load removed from their, daily life, because we can all do with that. I might get it for my 16-year-old maybe.
Some people call them husband helpers as well.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, well, that's right. It's, helping people manage that daily activity, helping kids be more in control and be aware of what's going on, and help them learn and to take responsibility for things too.
Yeah, without a doubt. The change even in my kids when they know what's ahead and they know that they're in the driver's seat, it just, it makes mornings so much smoother.
We all need that. We all want that. Amazing, Megan. Thank you so much for joining me and for sharing all your tips and your journey and your, ups and downs that come with running a product business.
That's right. Never a dull moment. Thank you so much for having me, Mel. I really appreciate it.
All good. We'll speak to you soon. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the Lotco Business Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure you subscribe to receive future episodes as they are released. And I'd be so, so grateful for a review on Apple Podcast. If you would like a copy of the show notes or any of the links mentioned today, please jump onto my website at thelotco.com.au/podcast. Have an amazing week, and I look forward to chatting to you again soon.